Gym Class Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Bombo, and I'm here with first-year Charlotte Christian head coach, Chris James. Not to be confused with the one.
Yes, for sure.
That has been like
weekly, all the time.
I can imagine.
All the time.
You know, it's like good.
I know, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I know, man. And it's funny, man, because it's like we're really close. I actually talked to him yesterday, and so we worked together for that 1 year. So it's like, hey, man, I got it again. And so like when I was in CMS, it was worse because my email was Christopher A. James at CMS, and his was Christopher R. James. And so I would get all his emails from school. He would get mine. Before I ever knew the guy, I'm like, man, who is this dude, man? So it's funny. It's been happening for a long time, even before both became head coaches, man. But he's a great dude.
It's like
great
y'all
dude.
intertwined.
I know, it's hilarious, man. He's my twin. That's what we say. He's my
yeah.
I know. It was a lot of fun, man. A lot of fun. So we were kind of joking about it early on, and then thankfully, Jabril with Turf Kings was able to set it up, man. It was a great event, great football game, man. It was. What a way to start the season for both sides, man. But it was a lot of fun, man. A lot of fun.
Let's go get into starting the season.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you come in here and you replace a coach that has been here for almost 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of your former coaches, and Jason Estep, had the opportunity to sit down and talk to him. Great guy.
Yeah, good dude.
First, let's just talk about like what you were able to pull from the time being at Charlotte Christian, just learning under Coach Estep, and how have you been able to take that knowledge and transition it to your time?
Yeah, for sure. No, it's a great question. So, I went to school here, and so the funny thing is, so Jason's first year as a head coach was my senior year, and so I've known Jason for a long time now. And so then I played for him my senior year, and then I came back and I coached for them for about 7 years. And so I was on campus for a long time with him. And so just to be able to sit there, and kind of be in the same office as he was in, I really kind of saw this place grow from the time we were, if you think back to 2004, we were 0-10 that year. That was my freshman year. And so then you kind of build all the way up. My senior year, we made it to the state championship game with him. But then just as far as all the other stuff that goes into the program, seeing it built all the way, it just gave me a different insight that a lot of first-year head coaches don't get. So being able to be here and kind of know what this school is and not to have any surprises and all that type of stuff, that's the hardest part. Just whenever you get to a new place, is like, hey, who can you lean on, who can you trust, and all that stuff. So thankfully, being here for so long, it was a pretty seamless, transition from that standpoint. As far as, hey, I know everybody here already and all that stuff. And so, as far as the transition to the head coaching stuff, Jason's still one of my best friends. He was at my wedding, and so I've known him. Like we talk all the time still. So it's fun that. I kind of know a lot of the stuff he would do, but the fun part for me now is kind of be able to put your own spin on it a little bit. So, I learned so much from him, and the guys that we have on our coaching staff are just unbelievable, man. For us to have, get a Hall of Famer on the staff. Pete Metzelaars was. It's crazy. Our staff's just great. So, and through the years, we've had so many guys that have been just instrumental, just taught me so much about leadership and all that stuff, and I still lean on a lot of those guys. And so, I was very blessed, to work with great guys and learn a lot. And then it was beneficial for me too to leave for a few years. And so I was a head coach at Covenant Day for 3 years, and I was at Audrey Kell for 2. And I was at Myers Park, so I was able to at least go around a couple different programs and pick off a few things. Hey, I like what they did here, not so much here. So it was one of those things that I was blessed to be in good situations and learn a lot from a lot of good people. And so it's fun how kind of everything's come together here. So it's good.
That's like full circle.
It is. It's definitely full circle, no doubt.
Covenant Day.
Yeah.
You were the inaugural.
Yeah. So I was the inaugural head coach for 3 years there. So I had 3 good years, and then I kind of been in private school education, like private Christian education, for so long. It was kind of, my wife was in CMS at the time. We didn't have kids, and so just kind of looking around, and AK was down in Ballantyne, and it was an opportunity for me to do something totally different in a different environment. And so, loved my 2 years there. That's a great place down there. A lot of great people for sure. And then I had a son that was born, and so I live in Cotswold, and so moved over to Myers Park, and it's a solid 4-minute drive for me to get to Myers Park High School. So it was like,
It makes those 6 o'clock.
Yeah, no, for sure, no doubt, man, no doubt. So, but yeah,
it's not often do you get, you were a senior and you had like a Hall of Fame head coach.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Charlotte Christian. You get to watch him come in and
for sure,
build a program.
No doubt.
Then you come back a handful of years later,
for sure,
and you work on the staff.
For sure, no doubt. For sure.
And like you're like the second person basically to take the keys.
I know.
And now you're driving the Lamborghini.
I know. That's right. I know. I mean, it's crazy you said that, but I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, it's a great opportunity, and I mean, there's not many jobs better than this one. I mean, anywhere in the Southeast, really. And so it was. I'm definitely blessed, man. Like I said, for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, there had to be things that like you basically seen him start this thing, and you were in it. Now you have the chance to run it.
For sure.
Is there like things that you see parallel from what he's done to what you plan on doing?
For sure. Yeah. So I think a lot of it's kind of streamlined, right? So I mean, there's because of the success that he had, we still have like a lot of the train's already moving, right? So I mean, there's like I said, we're not changing, we're not building new train tracks. We're keeping it rolling now. We're going to dress it up a little bit differently, look a little bit different at times and stuff like that. But the nuts and bolts are going to stay the same. And so at the end of the day, we've always been or tried to be a relationship first, staff, and really the relationship piece is so important to have with the kids. And then, as far as just have godly men and do the right things for the kids first. And then, I mean, I believe, and Jason does too, I mean, the wins and losses tend to take care of themselves. If you do things right, Monday through Thursday, practice the little things, X, Y, Z, do all those things. I mean, treat the kids right and do the best you can. I mean, hopefully the ball rolls your way at times too. And I'm a firm believer in that for sure. So.
Do you feel that, obviously, the success that he had coming in, and then you coming in a new program. Basically, it's new to you.
For sure. Yeah.
This program.
Yeah.
There can be a sense of pressure and expectations.
Oh yeah. No doubt.
That are placed on you from the prior. Like let's say like a Mallory situation when you have a coach.
For sure. Yeah. No doubt.
Dominate.
For sure.
Have a new coach come in, and people seem to adhere to that old expectation.
For sure.
Obviously, you guys like that come on the field almost every year.
Yeah, for sure.
But you had a little hiccup. Did you feel like any pushback during that time or questioning? Or how has the environment been for you?
Yeah, for sure.
Your first year in Christian?
Yeah, no, I think the expectations are high, and I think it's funny. I was actually thinking about this the other day. I mean, just over the years, when he got the job and all of a sudden, like, we were doing really well. And people were more like shocked, not like, oh, I can't believe you guys are winning like that, but it was like, man, he's doing such a great job. And then as those years continue, it kind of becomes not oh man, he's doing a great job. The expectation is we're going to continue to win, not even 7 games, but it's like, hey, we got to be in like the double-digit category of wins every year. And so, there's definitely a stress factor to that as far as the expectations and all that type of stuff. And I mean, the reality is for our conference, I mean, we've played a couple really good teams and we went down to Georgia. We got beat by Calvary Day, who's a great football team. So, we really got to beat Raven Gap and Providence Day now, and those guys are, if you look at the mass preps rating, they're number 1 and number 2 in the entire state, even though Raven Gap's in Georgia. So, probably last time I checked, Providence Day was in the mid-30s nationally. Raven Gap's kind of right up there with them too. So it's the expectations, regardless of what their personnel is or what Raven Gap's personnel is, it's our job to put our guys in a situation to beat those guys every year. And so our community kind of got accustomed to getting rings at the end of the season. And so regardless of whatever happens, it's kind of what everybody expects. So it's it's a great thing that you have that, because then there is a driving force that pushes us forward in that standpoint. But it's also challenging too. But I wouldn't want it any other way. I really wouldn't. I mean, I've been in situations where it's like, it's really not that important and all that type of stuff. But I'd rather be in a situation where the expectation is high, and we're going to hold those kids to a high standard too. So it's there's definitely expectations, there's definitely pressure, but I'm sure Nick Saban would say the same thing. I mean, there's a ton of pressure. I mean, they lose one game and everybody's, they've fallen off the map. It's like, no, they got beat by a top 5 Texas team. I mean, they're going to be fine, but it's just, yeah, for sure. For sure. No doubt. So.
Like I say, nothing goes straight up.
Correct. I know.
You brought it up.
For sure. Yeah.
How does it, I mean, year in and year out, you come in, especially when it comes to private school competition.
For sure.
You got Charlotte Christian. They're always the talk of the private school sector, especially in North Carolina. It's a lot different this year. Seems like all that attention has shifted from you guys to the school down
for sure. Yeah.
And private what is your message to your team to have them, one, focus on what you guys are doing in-house, and two, does that create sort of a pressure-less situation where it's like the microscope isn't so much focused on you guys anymore?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. I think, from a motivation standpoint, I think, our guys, that's obviously one of the biggest rivalries, I would say, really anywhere around when we play those guys. It's year in, year out, it's a fantastic football game. They got us pretty good in the state championship game there last year, and we're a little banged up and we didn't play very well, and they played pretty good, and so that's what happens when you play good football teams. So I think the hardest part, when you're at lesser programs, is getting your guys to believe that you can compete with these guys. And so obviously, we went to Providence Day last year in the regular season, we beat them. Last year in the playoffs, we went to Raven Gap. We beat them. So I think that there's the belief within our players that we can compete because we've done it in the past. That's one of the hardest things when you're 5-6 years in a row and you've never beaten a team. It's a way different, psychological mindset. You got to try to battle and all that stuff. So, really our guys believe that, as long as we play clean football, we create turnovers and, all the things that we talk about week in, week out, then we can be in a situation in the fourth quarter to win a football game. So that's definitely one of those things for us, is that we've been right there. We beat them last year, so we just got to put our best foot forward and see what happens, man. Because you never know. I mean, the ball bounces funny ways sometimes, and as part of the deal. But no, I think that just overall, it's crazy how quick athletics in general shifted and all that. And we were talking about a little bit earlier as far as just the NIL stuff, the transfer portal, and how it trickles down to the high school level. It's just it's a different world than it was 5-10 years ago. It's changed so fast.
I mean,
so
it definitely has, as far as like just the expectation.
For sure.
What you expected as a head coach coming in and trying to motivate these guys and such. I was wanting to ask you, what was some of like the best career advice that you got?
Oh man, I tell you, there's one of the things so we worked with a guy for a long time. His name is Troy Brown. He's a fantastic guy, and he ran his own company. And I don't know why, it's like one of those things that's always stuck with me. But he talks about leadership in general, and he talks about one of the biggest things from that standpoint is, every new boss, coach is going to come in and set an expectation. That's just, hey, here's what we're doing, blah, blah, blah. But he said the best leaders are able to set expectations and then see when whatever you initially set starts to deteriorate. It's the resetting of those same expectations. And how do you do that? How do you communicate that effectively and all that type of stuff? So for some reason, it's the ability to reset the expectations when you can feel it deteriorating. And I think for some reason that's always stuck with me. I think about that a lot as far as just running a team or anything like that. Like, hey, our locker room looks nasty. The expectation was to have a clean locker. Like, how do we go about resetting that expectation? So I think running a program, that's what I would just say from an overall standpoint. And then I think just the other thing I think about all the time is that a quote that's rules without relationships equals rebellion. And so I think about that from both coaches and players standpoint. Like when you're managing your players, if there's no relationship there and I'm barking at a kid to give more effort or whatever it is, there's going to be rebellion if there's no relationship. And so those are two things that I've thought about a lot. Just quotes through the years, and so it takes time and effort to have those relationships and all that stuff. But so there's little times after the fact where I mean, every football coach barks at one point or the other at kids and all that stuff. I mean, that's what they expect, right? But it's the ability to come back after the fact and be like, hey, do you know why I did this? And you know what I'm saying? So that's the fine line as far as and every kid's different too, and learning the kids and. You got to figure out, hey, you can yell at one kid and they shut down, and another kid, like, he's going to respond the exact opposite. So, for sure.
Unfortunately, sometimes that's how you can get somebody.
Correct.
It's such a response.
For sure.
And just like those are a couple of quotes that you're saying, it makes me think about parenthood.
For sure. It's very similar.
It's
very similar.
You have to be a parent, but
for sure.
at the same time, you got to be able to.
I know.
When your rules or your expectations.
For sure.
Or maybe deteriorate.
No doubt.
Adjust.
For sure.
So it's funny that you say that. You having a 2-3-year-old?
I've got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, so I go home. They're a little bit different ages, but I'm still dealing with ruckus at home too.
So
ruckus hits all the time.
How do you deal with that and able to compartmentalize like your football life,
for sure.
And then your fatherhood?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think. One thing I try to do, and sometimes I don't do a very good job on it because my wife gets mad at me sometimes. But when I go home, I mean, she does. My wife's unbelievable, man. I couldn't do what I do without her at all. And so, I try to put my phone down. And like I said, there's plenty of times where I don't. People are calling and I take it, and she gives me that eye, and I'm like, yeah, I'm about to get chewed out here. So, but yeah, I think. We're a big believer as a family of just like having family dinner every night, and so it's a huge piece. And my kids they're the best, man. It's the best part of my day every day is when I go home and they're so happy to see me and all that stuff. And the fall's hard because you got a lot of time when you're every Thursday night you're gone, every Friday night you're gone. I mean, we meet on Saturdays for film, and so it's a lot of stress and strain on those at home and all that stuff. But my wife's she's a beast, man. She holds the fort down, and I think when I get home and it doesn't matter how tired you are, they're going to be running around and all that stuff. And my 1-year-old doesn't really let me, chill because as soon as I get in, he wants me to pick him up and carry him everywhere. I mean, you know how that is. So, but yeah, it's. I try to keep that the most important thing because I know how important being a dad is to your kids, and they see it, just like they can see through BS just like your kids can if you're not invested in them. I know they're really young at this point, but they can see through all that stuff too. So
I love that. So what makes you?
Oh man, it's a great question. I think I've got, if you think all the way back, I mean I've got 2 older brothers, and so my family had three boys in 18 months, and so there's nothing that anybody can say to me that so how as a younger brother, it's like people ask me all the time, they're like, hey, the parents, like what they say and all that stuff, does it bother you? I'm like, no, my brothers have called me so many worse things in my life, it's like I just got used to it, so it's just kind of, that's a big piece of it. And so we were a sports family, and it's funny because both my brothers actually went to Providence Day, and so I went to school here, so it's been really fun through the years, and so I've got so many friends that went to school there, and obviously they went to school there. So I mean, it's been a lot of fun. But I think obviously, just as I continue to grow, and I think the relationship that you have with Christ is so important, man. It's so important, and I think that's the nice thing about being back here is that you're surrounded with great people, and they all. I mean, nobody's perfect, right? But at the end of the day, there's people that can hold you accountable, and at the end of the day, we all need that. And so there's people that are like, hey man, like, how we doing? Like, how's your walk? I mean, people just to ask you that and be like, yeah, you know what? Like, you can tell when you're drifting a little bit and all that stuff, man. So it's definitely not the easiest thing, but when you can as a coach, you can tell too, like if your relationship with Christ isn't where you need to be, everything else you can look around like. That's exactly right, for sure. You're exactly right, man. That's exactly right. And so it's a huge piece of it, and I think being a dad and all that stuff, and I try to have fun, man. I really do. I think, I mean, I try to let the kids have as much fun as they possibly can. I mean, I've probably said it a million times with these kids, but there's there's a difference between having fun and being an a-hole. And a lot of times we got some guys that are way over the line. So that's another thing from a leadership perspective. It's hard, It's like that line is so delicate because I want them to have a great time and have a great high school experience. I really do. And sometimes I'm like, guys, you're killing me, man. It's like we got our quarterback over there singing some praise song during our defensive team, and it's like our DC's looking at me. I'm like, oh, quit being an idiot, But it's like they're having fun, man. And so that's, I want them to look back.
It's like when you get between those guys,
for sure.
You want them to flip a switch on.
No doubt, for sure.
But the maturity sometimes isn't there.
For sure. I know. Yeah, for sure.
What can you is there something that you like videos, motivational videos you put on?
For sure.
Coach you go to? Anything like that kind of helps them?
Oh, I mean,
them to flip that switch?
Yeah, I probably need to find a better one because I typically have to tell them that you're getting really close to the a-hole line. So I mean, it's probably not the best thing, but I mean, it's kind of the reality. But no, I mean, I think that a lot of that is just like I said, like the relationship piece is having a one-off conversation with them. It's like, guys, I try to tell them because one thing that. Because I never thought I would be a teacher. I mean, I had no idea when I was in high school that I would do this. And I was like, so I tried to pull them out and be like, hey, do you think it's easy to manage you guys? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, can you help me out, please, a little bit? Because at the end of the day, I'm not trying to be the guy that comes and just, is always yelling at you, but you're not giving me a choice here. And I try to ask them, hey, what would you guys do if I'm me? And a lot of times they're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, you get mad at me because I tell you to quit doing X, Y, Z, and then what would you do? Yeah. And so it's one of those things where I try to, from a leadership perspective, learn that way and try to teach those guys and stuff like that. But it's never a dull moment, man. Never a dull moment. Yeah.
And, I just think about that. Made me think about just with my daughter. Sometimes she'll want to get on the phone.
For sure.
Yeah. She's not supposed to be in us.
Oh yeah, I know.
Why are you making this hard?
Yeah, for sure. I know. And we both know that that you're not supposed to be on the phone, and you are. And so now you're testing me, and I'm like,
exactly.
Why are we doing this?
So why are we doing this? Happens, this is why.
That for sure. That's exactly right. For sure.
Let's talk a little bit about this game coming up, because this is probably, outside of the Georgia team, y'all played in Georgia.
For sure.
Ago.
Yeah.
Rayburn Gap is going to be the next big test.
For sure.
So just talk to me about your expectations from that team, Rayburn Gap, and what is it going to take for you guys
for sure.
to come out with the dub?
Yeah, so I think obviously they got a long road trip coming down. It's not the easiest place to get in and out of for sure when you go up there, but they're good, man. Those guys are big up front. Quarterbacks got a Maryland offer. They got a lot of players, man, and they're a good football team. So very similar to kind of what I was saying last against Providence Day and all that stuff. We got to create turnovers. We got to secure the football, and at the end of the day, you got to make plays. And at the end of the day, it's really that simple. So a lot of times you watch plays. Especially a lot of these close games. A lot of these NFL games are decided really by one or two plays when you think about it. Either a guy makes a play or he doesn't. And so, I think on Friday night you'll see the same thing. Good tight game, and we fumble the ball here if it bounces the right way, or X, Y, Z. It's a lot of that stuff. So how do we try to emphasize just protecting the ball for us offensively, creating turnovers for those guys, and then at the end of the day, try to put these guys in a situation where they can make plays, and let's see what happens with it. So we beat them on a Hail Mary last year in a crazy playoff game, and so our guys have the belief that we can win, and so I think it was actually a good thing going to Georgia and taking one on the chin, because our guys realized, hey, we're 3-0 going down. When we went down there, it's like, hey, we're not as good as we think we are. So let's humble yourselves a little bit, and we got to get better. And I think that we've done that. And so, get a great opportunity on Friday night to prove it. So it'll be good.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
I know, for sure. Yeah.
Field,
No doubt.
Thank you sitting down talking with me.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, man. Absolutely.